Is there a correct way, a right way of covering a war? Is there only one way to do so?
The way to cover a war, like really the way to cover any story, is to tell the truth as best you can, the best obtainable version of the truth, and to try to be fair. In the case of the Ukraine war, I think we have a very extreme case of clashing narratives, and that requires both the reporting of the facts and a connecting of the dots, and I think that's the main thing. Even if one side is flagrantly the aggressor, you can still connect the dots and make that clear while retaining fairness, I think.
Where's the line between informing and taking a stand?
There's an Anglo-American school that says everything is about facts, but I think a more realistic view is that the selection of the facts and the presentation of the facts itself always contains an element of subjectivity. You're limited to 1,000 words. You can't include the entire history of Ukraine and Russia in that amount of words. So, look, in this case, I have to say you have to weigh different goals and different imperatives, and you have to choose the least bad path. I'm sure they indeed broke some rules of Latvia. There must be some truth to some of that. However, the bigger picture, the picture that I think should have been paramount, is that one of the biggest problems in ending this war is the state of public opinion in Russia. Public opinion in Russia is not informed because the media in Russia is not real media, it's pure propaganda. And stations like this one play a very important role in trying to balance that even a little bit, and to quibble with them about what might have been a little bit of an effort to present some balance to their own audience back in Russia, to gain credibility, when we know that the bigger picture is that they're not in favor of the war or of Putin, may have been unwise. It's the British say, penny wise and pound foolish.
I'm not surprised that Latvia is imposing these rules, and it has a right to do so. And it's not been a new issue. It's been present since 2014, when there was an obvious threat to these countries, and when there was a literal example of Ukraine.
But wouldn't you agree that the bigger picture is that this particular station, at the end of the day, is not Russian propaganda? I think we have to be careful what we call propaganda. There is a point where it's clearly propaganda. Right now, the Russian TV stations are obviously nothing more than blatant propaganda. However, there's also a sliding scale, and it is within the bounds of reason to have Fox television or to have Ukrainian TV. And if you're going to lower the bar on what you call propaganda, pretty soon everything will be called propaganda, and that cheapens the discourse.
It was working specifically against the national security of Ukraine, and it was specifically like Kremlin orchestrated narratives. It was not manipulation or just disinformation to make things more complicated. It was clearly pro-Russian narratives.
No, by the way, I do agree with you, and I disagree with you, Maxine. I think Russian propaganda works wonderfully well. I'm just not sure I'm eager to rush into shutting down TV stations and taking things off the air. I think at some point you have to slightly depend on the audience to display some intelligence.
Yeah, and also we need to stress that Western media, to a large extent, and again, quote unquote, adopted the Ukrainian state of mind. Has media done more harm than good in the case of the Russia-Ukraine war? Maxime, please take the lead.
It's hard to answer to this. But at some point, it started, a lot of the public discourse started to help Putin a lot.
Ellie, it depends what media you're talking about. I think the world media and the foreign media has done a very good job under difficult circumstances because their business model is shot. So it's kind of amazing that thousands of people were sent to Ukraine. And they've done a pretty good job of covering a war where they couldn't reach the Russian-held areas and they couldn't report on Russia. Rain TV has done more good than harm, and Russian TV has done nothing but horrible harm.
Where do we draw the line between reporting and taking a stand, so to speak?
In my opinion, here, if you are Russian media, you have to take a side, because the moment that your country is wrong, and you have to go and say it in Russian for Russians. If there is nobody who doing it in Russian for Russians and saying we're wrong now, we are wrong on attacking Ukraine, we are wrong on this war, we have to end it, we have to apologize.
You have to maintain credibility for people to listen to you. To do that, you can't take a side too extremely. So at the risk of sounding like a journalistic bureaucrat, which I once was, it really helps to maintain a balance between reportage, this is happening, analysis, which is if this happens, that will happen, and opinion, which is if that happens, very bad. That last bit should be ring-fenced, and it should be clear that it's opinion, and if at all possible, you should have opposing points of view.
And it cannot replace the two previous parts that you mentioned. Irina?
Well, I just invite everyone who likes to speak about not taking any side to live 9 months under missiles and working from shelters, working during air raid alerts. It's easy to speak, and they should take into account who is the aggressor and who is the victim. And blurring lines in this conflict is not helping anyone. And it's not helping journalism, first of all.
Well, but Irina, to be clear, I think the sympathy towards you and the people of Ukraine who are under this horrific assault for 9 months is complete and total. That said, the world goes on, life goes on, and journalism has to be journalism. So there's a legitimate question how to report on this while understanding, and I said this in the beginning, that one side is the flagrant aggressor. No one here, certainly not I, proposes to blur that line.
Is the public better off with governments controlling the media or private owners controlling the media?
Oh, what a question.
We should in 20 seconds to answer.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I think in 20 seconds only.
Look, I think public media has a real role to play, because one of the problems in this world is that media, the news business is a public good, and it's also a business. So what happens if important things are not interesting enough to sustain the business? We've encountered that. I used to be the Europe and Africa editor of AP. Most of our audiences in the West, they didn't care about horrible wars in Africa, and that's just the truth. And it's a challenge. It really is. When you have the BBC, when you have public media in Israel or in France and other countries, that certainly plays an important role in ensuring that not everything is down to a business. And I mean, by the way, that has to be kept distinct from government media, especially government media in a dictatorial country like Russia. That has no value whatsoever.
Yeah, of course, I'm for the public media, and in Ukraine, the best media are public. And for now, the TV broadcasts are part of the national marathon. It's not a good thing, because it gives mostly like positive information, which doesn't allow. It helps people to keep up their mojo in general, but it doesn't inform people that well as the public media.
Well, almost 30 minutes of discussion about the media and its role in covering a war. Not a single word on social media. I think we've done well, lady and gentlemen. Irina Matvishin, we're sending our admiration to your work under those conditions there. Maxime Katz, Dan Perry, thank you very much for schlepping here to studio. We're out for our last 2-minute break, and we're back.